there, everyone. Welcome to the Bird's Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. The NFL does a really good job of trying to keep itself relevant 365 days a year, but at a certain point, the NFL even has to go into a little bit of hibernation, and that generally tends to happen once the schedule comes out. Yes, there's going to be other activities going on. The Eagles still have OTAs and the mini camp that are going to occur. But we are starting to move into the deep offseason where the league goes a little bit dormant. So, in today's episode of the Bird's Nest Podcast, we're going to use this as an opportunity to just touch base on some of the more recent stories that have occurred. And we're going to start with the one that broke just this afternoon. Something that Eagles fans have probably been expecting for quite some time, but the Philadelphia Eagles announced that they have signed Nick Sirianni to a multi-year extension. Now, Jeffrey Lurie said in a statement at the time of the signing that Nick has embodied everything we're looking for in a head coach since we hired him 4 years ago. His authentic style of leadership, football intelligence, passion for the game, and growth mindset have helped to bring out the best in our team. Now, when it comes to what this means for the Eagles, well, nobody is or should be saying that this extension was not well earned. And yes, I am looking at Joe Giglio, Joe DeCamara, and John Ritchie as I add should to that statement. Nick Sirianni has a 48-20 record over his 4 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, and that bumps up to 54-23 when you start including playoff numbers. This is notable for 2 reasons. First, it's the second most wins in NFL history for a coach in his first 4 seasons. Second, it puts Nick Sirianni just behind John Madden and George Allen in win percentage among head coaches with 50 games under their belt. So Nick Sirianni, admittedly, it's a little bit of a smaller sample size than those two, but when you start mentioning names like John Madden, you know you're in pretty good company. And that's something that Nick has really used to catapult himself into a strong position. Yes, there have been up and down moments for him, but on the whole, the Eagles' trajectory over the course of the last 4 years has been up. Nick is the only head coach in Eagles history to bring the team to multiple Super Bowl appearances, and certainly Philly fans are hoping that he's going to be the first Eagles head coach since Earl Greasy Neal back in 1948 and 1949 to bring home 2 NFL titles. 4 straight playoff appearances. This is a feat that the team hasn't accomplished since Andy Reid. He also has a little bit of a coaching tree going on now too, so that makes all of these feats that much more impressive when you consider the fact that he's had new coordinators coming in nearly every season. While yes, as I mentioned, he does have his up and down moments, he had some rocky starts, had a rocky start of the 2021 season when he first arrived, definitely had a rocky end to the 2023 season, and a rocky start to this past season. When you look at his career as a whole to this point, this signing absolutely makes sense, and it puts the Eagles in a solid position to be able to build upon the success of these first couple of years. Organizational consistency at the top is critical. And that's one of the reasons why the Eagles have been so very successful over the course of the last 20 some odd years, is because of the fact that they have consistent leadership at the top. Even going back to when Jeffrey Lurie took over the team from Norman Brayman, that consistency over the course of the last 3 decades has been a real benefit to this team. So the fact that Nick is on board for another few years, I'm a huge fan of this. We've come a long way since Nick was planting seeds in the garden. We're starting to see those flowers pop up. I am looking forward to seeing how Nick Sirianni builds upon his success of these first few years. Now, one of Nick's legacies, one of the things that he has really brought to the team, is the brotherly shove, the Tush Push. And that brings us to league news. The NFL's spring meeting is happening this week, and if you remember back from the annual meeting that occurred in March, the Green Bay Packers submitted a proposal to ban that play. We're expecting that vote to come on Tuesday or Wednesday. Now, as a refresher, outgoing Packers president Mark Murphy detailed the latest proposal had two justifications for why the Packers introduced it.
I was really moved by Alan Sills, the chief medical officer. He felt very strongly that it was just a question of when there'd be a catastrophic injury with this. So that was it, and then pace of play was the other thing. And I maybe it's because I'm not a former commander, I'm a former Redskin, but the NFC Championship game with players jumping over the line, and I don't think it's good for the game.
Today, the Packers updated the language of the proposal, which now would ban any runner assistance beyond individually blocking defenders ahead of the particular runner. So it would bring the rules back to what they were prior to 2005, when the rules were changed to allow for people to be able to push the runner on offensive plays. Now, I shared some thoughts about this proposal before, including alluding to the fact that I think this is a move by someone who's bitter that his team was swept last season in two very high-profile games, because the prima facie evidence here is completely bogus. Murphy admitted that there's not enough injury data and the situation was really based off of speculation. Alan Sills, NFL chief medical officer, conceded that the medical data simply doesn't exist yet, but at the same time, he's saying it's just a matter of time. I haven't seen a play banned by the NFL simply based off of speculation over an injury. So I think it's ridiculous to consider the fact that speculation about an injury is enough to simply ban a play, because otherwise speculation about any injury is enough to ban pretty much any play in football. This pales in comparison to the hip drop tackle that was banned last season. There was plenty of injury data to support banning that particular move. It's also a move that was banned, not a play. So the fact that the Packers are proposing to ban a play as opposed to a move based off of projected injury data is insane. And it gets even more ludicrous when you consider the fact that they also submitted it under the pace of play justification. The pace of play argument shouldn't even enter into the question, especially when your example for that is Frankie Louvu leapfrogging over the offensive line to try to tackle Jalen Hurts. That is the problem of the opponent who has to try to stop the play. The defense's actions should not cause the offense to suffer by having a strategy of theirs be completely removed from the playbook. So Frankie Louvu leapfrogging over the line of scrimmage to try to tackle Jalen Hurts, not a reason to ban the play. There is no pace of play concern at all. The other big thing regarding this is that both sides of the football have to learn from each other to stay competitive. Offenses come up with plays to foil defensive schemes. Defenses readjust their schemes to try to foil offensive plays. Offenses then, in turn, adapt to those new schemes. Both sides kind of have to be like the Borg from Star Trek, where you're assimilating and adapting to what a particular team may bring to the table. If you don't like a play, find a way to stop it. Ultimately, it will catch on. The NFL is such a big copycat league, it's not even funny. And then, somebody on the offensive side of the football, once you find your defensive way to stop it, is going to innovate to try to come up with another play that's going to foil the new defensive scheme, and ultimately, the tush push will fall out of use in favor of whatever that next thing is. So we'll see what the league decides to do here. Jeffrey Lurie and the rest of the Eagles brass have all said that they're going to play with whatever rules the league gives them. However, Nick Sirianni has done a little bit of campaigning to try to keep this play in the playbook. We will certainly know the answer later on this week. Also under consideration at the NFL's spring meeting is a proposal to allow NFL players to compete in flag football at the 2028 Olympics. This was something that I saw coming down the pipeline for quite some time here. I am fully expecting this proposal to pass. It's going to authorize the league to work with the NFLPA to discuss how to enable it. There's a lot of legwork that's going to have to go on to ensure that players are going to be able to participate in all of the commitments required of the men's national team, compared to the NFL commitments that are also going to be required of them. There's also going to be limits on the number of players that could come from particular teams. There's also going to need to be legwork done with USA Football, which was appointed as the national governing body for flag football earlier this year by the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And the NFL will also have to work with the International Federation of American Football, or IFAF, which governs the sport internationally and was appointed to do so by the International Olympic Committee. Earlier this year, the IOC Executive Board set the quota for flag football at 6 men's and women's teams of 10 players. I caught up with IOC Sports Director Kit McConnell to discuss the process by which quotas are established for these Olympic sports, including new sports like flag football.
Look, firstly, in terms of the considerations around the OCOG proposal, I think this is the flexibility that was first introduced through the Olympic agenda for Tokyo, and the success of that we still see in the program now, with surfing, sport climbing, and skateboarding having continued as OCOG proposals for Paris then being brought on by the IOC side. So it really does give something special for each edition of the Games. And with the package put together by Los Angeles, this reaches out to the team sport communities around the country, embraces the links with the NFL in regard to flag, with the question you've put forward. So each of them really brings something unique, but also something collective in terms of reaching out to different sports communities around the country. In terms of the quotas, the approach taken has been pretty clear, I think, for Los Angeles. For Paris, because we had the 3 S's, skateboarding, surfing, and sport climbing, as well as breaking. Those were all individual sports put forward by Paris. So all of those numbers could be taken within the 10,500. But for Los Angeles, that was always going to be very difficult because of the 4 team sports put forward and the sizes of the athletes involved, and trying to find 600 or 700 athlete quotas for that package from within the 10,500 of the existing sports was always going to be very difficult. So that's why, in agreement with Los Angeles, we reached the agreement that the 10,500 number for Paris would be kept for the same set of sports, and the OCOG proposed sports would be on top. That doesn't necessarily set the precedent for the future. It's specific to Los Angeles because of the nature of the sports that they put forward. So it's a solution that's perfect for Los Angeles, but for future games, maybe looked at differently.
Now, one little interesting side story that's related to this is Philadelphia local Amir Brown was appointed to the 2025 U.S. men's national flag team roster for international competitions that are occurring this year. Brown was born and raised in Philly. He went to Imatep Charter and is listed as a DB and wide receiver for the national flag football team. Remember, there are no offensive linemen in this, and teams are substantially smaller compared to an NFL team. Brown will compete in the few international friendly competitions in the next month before he heads down to Panama City for the IFAF America's Continental Flag Football Championship. Brown has never lost a game for the men's national team. He's won gold medals in the World Games 2022 in Birmingham, Alabama, the IFAF America's Continental Flag Football Championship in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2023, and the 2024 IFAF Flag Football World Championships in Lahti, Finland. So he's had some exposure on the international stage, and it's pretty cool. The men's team has actually gone 7-0 in the tournament, defeating Austria 53-21 in that championship game in 2024. So this is a really cool moment. It's always fun to see Philadelphia locals representing the United States on the world stage. This is something that Philly fans can be excited about as we look forward to this upcoming offseason. A huge congratulations to Amir Brown on this accomplishment, and we're certainly looking forward to seeing how he does on the men's national flag football team. 2 other proposals are under consideration at the NFL spring meeting. These were both tabled proposals from the annual meeting. One of the proposals has to do with tweaking the requirements for onside kicks. Notably, this is allowing teams to declare an onside kick at any point in time during the game if they are trailing the opponent. During the 2024-2025 season, this was something that was really only allowed during the fourth quarter if you were trailing the opponent. Now, the proposal would allow for onside kicks to be declared at any time in the course of the game. It's still not quite Andy Reid surprising the Dallas Cowboys with an onside kick in the opening kickoff of the 2000 NFL season, but it's definitely a step in the right direction, in my opinion, just based off of the fact that teams can use an onside kick strategically at any point in time throughout the game. They've always been able to do that. It also allows for teams to do that if they're in jeopardy of going up against a team that might hold on to the ball for 10 minutes in the fourth quarter and end the game, like the Eagles did against the Steelers last year. The other proposal being considered at the spring meeting that was tabled at the annual meeting has to do with playoff seeding. The way that the NFL approaches playoff seeding right now, the division winners are automatically ranked ahead of the wild card teams. Invariably, this creates a little bit of a head-scratcher kind of situation where the Minnesota Vikings this year were the victims of it. The Minnesota Vikings became the first ever 14-win wild card team. Why? Because the Detroit Lions captured the NFC North division title. Since the Minnesota Vikings are also from the NFC North, they can't also win the NFC North. So the Minnesota Vikings had to make it in as a wild card team. But wild card teams are, by rules, seated below the division winners. So this proposal is being reintroduced to see whether or not they can garner some support to allow for division winners to be seated behind wild card winners in the event that a wild card winner happens to win more games than a division winner. So we're going to close out with something that actually occurred over this past weekend, and a huge shout out to the many, many people who are part of the Philadelphia Eagles fan base who came together over the weekend for the Eagles Autism Challenge. It was a dreary day weather-wise, but fans and supporters of the autism community came together to raise more than $10 million to support programs for those who are on the autism spectrum and part of the neurodiverse community. This is something that really has a lot of personal impact for many, many people throughout the Philadelphia area and beyond, including Jeffrey Lurie, who has had autism and neurodivergence touch his own family. So this is something huge and something really impactful, and it's always a joy to see this event come together when fans can unite with players, can unite with coaches, can unite with Eagles leadership to bike, run, or walk your way throughout the city. I've been to this event a few times. It's always a great day. So congratulations to everyone who came together and accomplished something big for this particular community. So that's where we're at right now in terms of Eagles and NFL news. And we'll keep you posted as things progress here. We do have some good content planned for the summer, so definitely stay tuned. We will keep you in tune with the Philadelphia Eagles, the NFL, and more throughout the city of Philadelphia and the sport of football. But for now, let me know what you think in the comments below. What are your thoughts about Nick's new contract, or the continued efforts to ban the brotherly shove? Let me know. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning into the Bird's Nest Podcast. You can support the Bird's Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Bird's Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and iHeartRadio. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage, and if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below or at birdsnestmedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's go Eagles!